Classic Restos is proudly brought to you by Shannons, where you can sign up to be a member of the Shannons Club, your local Holden certified service centre, Pace Farm the enjoyable egg, and Heron Forbes Machinery House, where you can buy online. G'day, I'm Fletch. Thanks for joining me. I'm in central New South Wales and you're about to see two classics and a museum in this week's Classic Restos on the road. Wide open spaces, tranquility and classic vehicles. It's time to meet Richard. Here's a bloke that is living his life to the full. Richard has had a bit of a rough trot health-wise, but he's getting there. On his beautiful 10 acres with his wife Shirley, they enjoy this country oasis that they have created over the past 5 years. They enjoy their outside stove area and their fire pit where the fresh air mixed with peace and quiet is on tap whenever they choose. Being retired might be one thing, but having a hobby is next. And this is where the old classic vehicle steps into play. And a big thanks to Joe Burton, the Shannons Regional Development Officer for this area, lining me up with guys such as this. How are you, Richard?
Very good, thank you, Fletch.
That's the way, mate. How you doing?
Oh, not too bad. Recovered from a bit of ill health recently, but other than that, really good.
You've got a bit of a secret, and that secret to wake up every morning is the stuff that surrounds you. And this 1955 Beetle here, wow, that's a beautiful car. The hobby is a very strong one, isn't it?
Very strong. A lot of people call me a VW nut, but I don't think so because I appreciate all cars. And you're right about the surrounds that I wake up in. We love our little property, very much.
Now, watching this episode so far, not long ago, we did an episode at Narromine, and we caught up there with Richard with an original HK Brougham, gold in colour, beautiful car. Well, this gentleman here is Richard's dad, so the apples don't fall far from the tree. Now, I know that Richard has had a lot to do with the restoration of this Beetle. His workmanship is absolutely incredible. We look at the Brougham, the one that was at the Narromine show, an original car, and he knows what he's doing with these things to keep them preserved, to keep them looking as good as they do. Now, was it a fairly arduous task here with the Beetle?
It was Richard's first full restoration of a motor car 19 years ago. He's got an eye for detail that I haven't got, and he gets that detail correct. His grandfather on Shirley's side had a very similar eye for detail. And without Richard, we wouldn't have the Blue Beetle or a lot of these cars we see in the shed today.
You live on a beautiful property. You've been here for a few years now, and to wake up every day and have these surroundings, but know that these sheds aren't too far away either. You've got everything that you need, Richard.
You've seen my workshop down there. Also does as garage my Land Cruiser and Shirley's car. The rest of the cars get fixed up here. What better thing to have a son that's got 2 car hoists in his shed?
I've always said I think they're the most creative vehicle ever made. They're also the vehicle that you can do anything to and it's almost accepted. You go to a Volkswagen show, there's no Volkswagen the same. They've all got their little differences, and they can be fully ratted out, they can be beautiful and original. You can have a rusty combi, a restored combi, but it doesn't matter what's there, it's cool in its own right.
Exactly right. You can appreciate every Volkswagen you see, but the little note on top of that, the owners generally match the car that they've ratted or kept tidy or whatever they've done with it.
Now this oval window here, beautifully restored. This is a Concours car. I can't believe how nicely the doors close. I don't think I've experienced the closing on any Beetle door as nice. Absolutely beautiful. And even the bonnet, the way that you close that, and you've got a procedure on that, right?
I've got a procedure. Volkswagen bonnets are usually slammed shut. This one, my son, with his eye for detail, got it closing, it just goes click. So you've got to be very careful closing the bonnet on this car.
What's the paint colour, Richard?
Commercial blue. It's a VW colour from 1955 when the VW was built.
How does it drive as a car?
It drives like a Volkswagen. I wouldn't call it a car. It's just a Volkswagen. Pokes along very slow and responsive because it's got a 1100 motor in it. Coming downhill, we can get it up to 65 mile an hour, and you can seat the 5 people in it that Mr. Adolf Hitler wanted, but it's very cramped.
Richard, I want to thank you for the opportunity of catching up with you. It's been a pleasure to drive to your property and to catch up also with Shirley. I think what you're doing is wonderful, and it's obviously helping you. It's giving you a lot of longevity as well, and wish you all the very best for the future. And all I can say, and I'm sure watching at home or on your phone or wherever you're watching from, you'll agree with me, just keep doing what you're doing, mate, and you'll go okay as long as you keep that passion going with the classic car.
Yes, true and correct. It's where you live and what you do, and enjoy where you live and enjoy what you do. Makes a very big difference to your health as well.
Well, it's been a pleasure, mate.
Okay. Thanks, Fletch.
This car was found on a property the other side of Warringah, near Forbes, New South Wales. The farmer that owned it, or had it on his property, his son owned it, and it was the usual story, I'm going to restore this one day. I come home to get $300 to buy the rusted wrecked shell that was bogged in a paddock. The wife said, no, you're not buying another car. The son happened to be privy to the conversation. He said, I've got $300 in my wallet, Dad, let's go get it. So we went and got it, brought it home, and then started stripping it down in the backyard. The reasons that I appreciate and like this car, when I found it, I noticed it had a single exhaust pipe, semaphores that are the blinkers for the cars. If you notice, it's got no blinkers on the mudguards. It's got the oval back window, the Pope nose on the bonnet for the tail light, the big air vents. The fuel tank has a big snout for putting fuel into. So it's got a lot of unique stuff that is not found on a normal Volkswagen. To drive it, it drives like a Volkswagen. It's not real powerful. It's got plenty of leg room, and I enjoy driving it. It means a lot to me to drive it because of all the hard work that myself and other people have put into the car. We've got a result. It's a family car that's going to be passed down the line. This is not a speed car. It's not a race car. It's a car that I enjoy driving down the road slowly. I'm getting a bit older now and I don't mind driving slow. It's very nice to be able to drive it in a group of other Volkswagens. Always get a thumbs up from other drivers. It's just something that you drive that they used to drive in 1955.
We've always had a few cars. They're all special. The T-Bird.
Oh, that's mine.
The Combi for when we want to get away. The XR8.
It's going to be a classic.
They're all insured with Shannons,
We've also got Shannons Home and Contents cover.
which helps protect our automotive collectibles, tools and memorabilia in the home and garage. If you're motoring enthusiasts like us, it's got to be.
Shannons.
Shannons, insurance for motoring enthusiasts. Call 13 46 46 for a quote.
When it comes to cars, there are some brands that will remain with us forever, no matter what. The Holden was always Australia's own car, held high in the hearts of many. Those lines, that chrome, the stories around them, and the people that owned them. From the classic through to the final, you can still trust in genuine Holden and AC Delco parts, available through the Holden Certified Service Network. Have a look for your nearest Holden Certified Service Centre at holden.com.au, and let's keep supporting Australia's own. Welcome back. Please excuse the change of attire, the minus 15-degree temperatures out here at Parks, and bit of a cold snap, Brett.
Oh, yeah, by some standards, I suppose, yeah, a bit cool.
Yeah, they say the Southern Highlands, New South Wales is cold. That's okay. I'd rather this than work in 38.
Yeah, too right.
Okay, now an opportunity to return back to the dish. When you're in Parks, you just have to do this. Brett, great to see you again.
Yeah, how you going, Fletch?
I'm going well, and I made myself known to Brett on the last trip out here. And Brett, before we talk about the car behind us, just quickly, your job here, your role here at the dish.
Oh, I'm a senior technical officer here. I do electronics, and yeah, I look after coordinating the maintenance, you might say, across the different disciplines.
So the big girl at the moment is facing straight up. What have you done there? Something gone haywire? Have you bridged a few pins? And why is it straight up at the moment?
Well, today we're doing maintenance, and so it's in that upright position so people can get access to the focus cabin at the very top, if you can see that behind us. Yeah.
Interesting job.
It's very interesting, and there's a whole load of really good people to work with. It's a good. I feel very lucky.
So, Brett, how many years have you been here?
About 25. It's like a lifetime, really.
You're going for the gold watch.
Yeah.
Now, it's great that, as I said earlier, we met up last time, and you're part of the car club out here as well. You want to give them a plug?
Yeah. The Central West Car Club.
And it was just coincidence that Brett has got this wonderful 1962 Vauxhall Cresta behind us. Now, this is a car that we haven't had a lot of on Classic Restos over the years. A pretty rare sort of a car. And it's the Brits' red hot go back in the time. You can see some American-inspired styling. It's a fairly large car and probably, in my opinion, one of the more stylish cars that they did back in those early 60s.
Yeah. It was the first attempt from Vauxhall Motors to get something that looked a bit more stylish, and they did. They went out of their way to look at some of the other GM cars in America at the time, and so consequently it ended up perhaps a little bit dated even when it came out, but it was based on some other American cars.
Interesting too, see that late 50s style of the A-pillar, how that comes in, and some of the big brands, they shared that shape. You look at some of the Ford Fairlanes from the late 50s as well. They had that curvature in the A-pillar, and of course very big with General Motors styling, and you can see that that's incorporated into this car. The line running through to the top of the rear quarters with their little fins of the same era, Cadillac of the same period. Also had, they've toned down their fins at this point, so they're there, nicely done.
Yeah, I really think I've secretly always wanted a car with fins, and I think to go with a 62 Cresta, Australian made, I think it's got a bit of style and a lot of chrome.
Now we talk of engine up front. What's going on there?
It's a 162. So people often ask, is that related in some way to the 161, the GM version? No, it's Vauxhall through and through.
It's just a cube out, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
And of course the transmission behind there, we've got the Hydromatic. Yeah. That's interesting too.
Yeah. Well, it came out a whisker before the GM Holden brought it out in there.
It'd be EK.
Yes, I think so, yes.
The British cars too, they weren't lightweights. They never messed around with the amount of steel they used to put in their cars. It looks like a heavy car. Obviously, that would give it a nice ride. I like the level of trim, the appointments that have been given to the car. Sitting inside and looking at the rearview mirror, you can't help but notice that really nice clock that's up on the centre of the roof, and I think that's very tastefully done. I think that's a nice touch that Vauxhall did as an interior feature.
Yeah, amongst other there was the Velox, the Vauxhall Velox. Velox meant 6-cylinder, and so in the PA, which is what this is, there was a Velox and a Cresta, and the Cresta is sort of the posher version, and with that you got your leather seats, and you got your clock, and different wheel caps, I suspect, and slightly sportier, different sort of up-spec paint. Yeah.
The clock is good because you won't be late for the dish when you've got your eye on the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Yeah. And it's right twice a day. Yeah.
Your interest to buy the Vauxhall, was it something that just came along and you thought, okay, I might get that car? Or is it something that you've been looking at for the last 20 or 30 years? Or you might have had an interest in these cars? Do they go back to your childhood? What's the story there?
Yeah, well, when I was a kid growing up in country Victoria, I got my first car, as you do, at 12, and when that car was a Bedford Ute, a little Bedford Ute. And it turns out that the Bedford Ute, the post-war Bedford Ute, was based on a pre-war Vauxhall sedan. That kind of got me interested in the marque, and yeah, I've sort of dabbled with Vauxhalls in and out over the years. We always thought this one would be a good one for our growing family. We got it after the family had left, but you know, we still got it, and it's a real joy.
Wonderful catching up. It's an absolute pleasure. Thanks for taking time out from the maintenance side of things there with the dish. Incredible place, the dish. I know you've probably watched it before and you've been out here to Parks, but if you haven't, as soon as you can get here, please try and do that. Spend a few days out here. It's the dish is just one of those. It's just a fascinating thing. It's huge. I mean, you look at it and you just want to know more about it as soon as you look at it. Well, that's how I find it anyway.
I think it's something for all of us to be proud of. It's we're used to Australia not really doing quite as well. We sort of don't expect to do as well as other countries, and in this case, I think we really are.
Well, playing a big part too back in 1969 with Man on the Moon as well. We played a big role right here with this very dish back in the days of Neil Armstrong.
Yeah, we were in pretty good company, and of course there was a huge team that went towards that end result, and Parks played an interesting part. Yeah.
I have a confidential, just a question to ask you, Brett, if I can. It's just between us and you at home and 6 countries. So, with the big dish facing straight up, is there anyone else out there?
Probably Fletch.
See, he's sworn to secrecy. Yeah. All right. It's a pleasure, mate. Thanks very much, Brett. I appreciate you turning up with your beautiful Vauxhall here on this quite chilly afternoon here in Parks, New South Wales.
Thanks for coming along. This 62 Vauxhall means a lot to me. It's a car that stirs the blood. It's a lot of fun to drive, and when I drive it, I feel like I'm going back in time. It's a lovely car to drive, and it keeps up with all the other cars on the highway. It's a lot of fun. Back in '62, Holden had 50% of the market share, and so in its day, it was considered a slightly higher level. It was a different product, and as the Holden sales were going up, GM was less inclined to promote its other brands. So this was almost the last of the Australian-built Vauxhalls. It lasted for another year, and then it was all over.
Like Dad, I've always been a Ford man. The Falcon Squire wagon was unloved in 1964, but turns heads today. The Americans call them woodies, but the panelling, it's just fiberglass and plastic. But it's a passion that Shannons understands, which is why my Fords are insured with Shannons. And now, so's the home.
Call Shannons on 13 46 46. Shannons, insurance for motoring enthusiasts.
They may not be making the classic Holden anymore, but the legacy lives on. You can still have a Holden certified service using genuine Holden and AC Delco quality parts at over 180 centres across Australia. Go to holden.com.au to find your nearest centre. Book your Holden in, maintain the pride. And when you get a moment, don't forget to give Shannons a call for a quote and a chat on 134646. Perhaps there's some memorabilia that you would like to have insured. And becoming a member of the Shannons Club has never been easier. For more information, visit shannons.com.au. How cool is this? When you're in Forbes, New South Wales, on your way into town or on your way out of town, depending which direction you're travelling, it's worth a stop at the Mcfeeters Motor Museum. It's run by a family. It started almost 60 years ago. That's how long they've been collecting cars for. They wanted a premises to put their own personal cars, so they've ended up with this here. It was built quite a few years ago, but inside there's such a variance of display, and it's ran by Bill, wife Jan and daughter Jill Mcfeeters. So let's go inside and find out a little more about this extraordinary place here in Forbes, New South Wales. You know, when you walk through the door here, you've got to pinch yourself a little bit, and you've got to realise we're in Forbes, New South Wales, and a regional part of the state. And with all the museums over the years that I've had the liberty of visiting in New Zealand, the United States of America, where some of the most opulent motoring museums can be found, this is very surprising. We unfortunately are coming up now with a tradition where there are more museums either closing. We're not really having a history of new ones opening. So when it comes to motoring museums in this country, I think we definitely have to nurture the ones that we have. And this one here in Forbes is well worth a visit.
I'm Jan Mcfeeters, and you're in our car museum. My husband and I have been collecting cars for 58 years, and about 15 years ago we decided to build them a good home. So this is our car's good home. My husband tells everybody it's my idea of a garage. Our cars range from 1902 to 2015. We've really enjoyed our cars. We've been on lots of car rallies, and we've been taken a lot of them from here, driven from Forbes, along the Great Ocean Road to Adelaide. We've been down to Sydney, we've been down to Wollongong, and lots of rallies in Victoria. Because the old cars that we drive from here love the roads down to Victoria because there's not many hills. My dad had a little Austin ute, and the family used to but the kids would all pile in the back of the ute, and we'd go off tripping around. But my memory of that is being very cold. So I guess that didn't make such a good impression. However, as we've gotten older and you've gotten used to old cars, you do get very wet and very cold in some of them. The building, we designed the building as a car showroom rather than a garage. We have put in a lot of safety things to look after the cars. We have carpet on the floor here, which has a fire retardant in it and a UV filters in it. It took us 15 months to build the building, and our aim was to have an attraction for people to look at our cars, but also to bring tourists to town, to Forbes. My feeling about the museum is that we started just as a simple family wanting to give our cars a good home, and I get quite overwhelmed when people come in and say, "Oh wow, this is fantastic." I feel a bit embarrassed when they're saying how good it is. I think the thing that does my own heart good was we decided to dress some mannequins to make a scene for the cars. And my idea was to give the ladies something to look at, so that the styles are in the style of the car. And when ladies come out and say, "Oh, that was so enjoyable," and it's even better when the men come out and make comment about the mannequins, how they create the scene. Our building is on the highway here, the Newell Highway, so that we have a lot of interstate travellers come, and we're more than happy to meet them. We're happy to tell them about our motor cars, and we're also happy to tell them about the town. So if anybody's coming through this way and stop off 7 days a week, we're delighted to see them.
Well, I hope you've really enjoyed this week's episode of Classic Restos, of course featuring Richard with his amazing oval window Volkswagen, then catching up with Brett out of the dish with his 62 Vauxhall Cresta, and rounding off today's show with this lovely lady here, Jan Mcfeeters from Mcfeeters Motor Museum here in Forbes, New South Wales. Hope you liked the show. Until next week, no matter where you're watching Classic Restos from, please ride and drive safe. I'm Fletch.
And we thank you very much for watching.
There you go. Thanks, Jan.
You can like and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/Classic Restos TV and watch catch-up episodes at shannons.com.au.
Classic Restos is proudly brought to you by Shannons, where you can sign up to be a member of the Shannons Club, your local Holden certified service centre, Pace Farm the enjoyable egg, and Heron Forbes Machinery House, where you can buy online.